You have two minds. One speaks loudly, the one you call thinking. The other speaks in behavior, in repetition, in impulse. It drives you when you're sure you're deciding. That second mind is quiet, consistent, and ancient. You don't fight it, you program it. The second mind is not about motivation or willpower. It's about understanding the operating system running underneath emotion and choice. Every pattern of calm, panic, discipline, or distraction begins here, below awareness. The goal isn't to destroy that system, it's to shape it, so composure and focus become reflex, not effort.
There's a layer of decision that happens before you ever notice deciding. You call it instinct, habit, or personality, but underneath those words sits the same mechanism. Memory organized by emotion, repeated until it runs automatically. This mechanism is your second mind, the silent architect of everything that feels natural. When you learn to walk, the conscious mind handled every step. Balance, weight, angle, distance, each one required thought. But once repeated hundreds of times, the behavior disappeared from awareness. Now you simply stand and move. The process is still happening. You've just delegated it. Walking became subconscious. That delegation pattern never stopped. Over years, each thought, behavior, and emotional response that served survival or comfort became encoded into this hidden layer. Every time you repeated the same reaction, you taught your nervous system, this is how we handle this. It's efficient and dangerous. Because the subconscious doesn't ask whether a behavior still serves you, it only checks whether it's familiar. Anything practiced enough becomes identity. Panic about deadlines, scrolling under stress, avoiding conflict. These are all learned shortcuts for managing energy. They persist not because they work, but because they feel known. Your second mind's first priority is stability, not progress. It interprets repetition as safety. That's why change feels uncomfortable even when logic demands it. Growth violates the patterns that kept your system constant. You call that resistance. The subconscious calls it protection. But what feels like resistance is simply lack of instruction. The subconscious is precise but obedient. It executes whatever code you write through experience, emotion, and repetition. Most people never rewrite it consciously. They attempt transformation with willpower alone, using the conscious mind to fight automatic programs 1,000 times stronger. It's like trying to reformat a hard drive by shouting at the monitor. Understanding this is freedom, because the moment you see that thought and feeling are products, not masters, you regain the position of programmer. Change stops being mystical, it becomes mechanical. Let's simplify this structure. The conscious mind decides, reasons, focuses for short bursts. The subconscious mind remembers, automates, and reacts instantly. Whatever the conscious repeats with emotion becomes a subconscious routine. It's a chain of command. For example, suppose you rehearse stress each morning by scanning for problems before anything good. After weeks, the second mind marks morning equals threat. Heart rate rises, adrenaline primes. You experience anxiety before any event has occurred. Logic can't talk it down because logic is higher in the order. It depends on calm to function. The part that fires first is emotional pattern. Now imagine reversing it. Each time you wake, you breathe slowly, notice light, delay screens. That calm registers as a repeated signal. After days, the subconscious updates. Morning equals safety. Soon, composure greets you before thinking begins. That is reprogramming. This system doesn't learn from argument. It learns from patterns supported by emotion. When you consciously affirm discipline but feel doubt, the subconscious receives mixed input. Emotion always wins because it indicates urgency. That's why change often requires physiological proof, the feeling of calm repetition that overrides panic repetition. Think of the second mind as a student that never debates the teacher. It memorizes demonstrations, not lectures. So, every time your body practices composure, slower breathing, relaxed posture,
consistent focus, you're teaching the code directly through physiology. Thought alone can point, practice imprints. You can't see this layer, but you can trace its designs. Look at your daily loops, what you do when you're tired, anxious, rushed. Automatic gestures reveal hidden beliefs. A phone grab might translate to, I can't sit with stillness. Overcommitment may hide, my worth equals output. Your behavior writes your subconscious diary more honestly than your affirmations ever could. The first duty of self-programming is inspection. Observe loops without judgment until patterns appear. Every recurring behavior is a line of inherited code. Some lines came from parents or partners, others from survival at younger ages. You can't edit what you won't read, so awareness is your diagnostic tool. The second duty is communication. The language the subconscious understands is repetition wrapped in emotion. The moment you attach calm or confidence to a behavior, you instruct the second mind, keep this. The moment you pair tension or guilt with an action, you teach, avoid this. Your emotions are the syntax in which your body writes new instructions. Finally, remember that the second mind isn't an enemy, it's infrastructure. It does not sabotage, you simply neglected its updates. It kept running an old operating system that no longer fits current reality. You outgrew the patterns, but the patterns never noticed. From here onward, your task isn't control, but retraining. Control creates resistance, retraining creates alignment. When conscious and subconscious agree, energy once spent on conflict fuels focus. You stop wrestling yourself and start cooperating internally. That cooperation is composure, the natural byproduct of inner agreement. When the second mind learns to mirror your present intentions, peace feels physical. And in that silence beneath thought, focus finally has room to expand.
Chapter 2. Conditioning. 101. How patterns are installed. To understand how to reprogram the subconscious, you must first understand how it was built. Every habit, reflex, and emotional bias you carry began as conditioning. Experience welded to feeling, repeated often enough to become automatic. No one escapes this process. It's how humans learn. The problem isn't that conditioning exists, but that you rarely notice which lessons were installed and which were chosen. From birth, the brain begins connecting meaning to sensation. When you were held and fed, warmth paired with safety. When you were scolded, tension paired with fear. These pairings form associations, neural alignments between stimulus and emotion. At first, they serve survival. Touch a hot surface, feel pain, withdraw faster next time. But as life grows complex, those same mechanisms apply to abstract things. Attention, success, approval, love. You touch emotional heat, feel fear, withdraw faster next time, even if there's no physical danger. Conditioning follows a simple law. Repetition times emotion equals memory. Intensity alone isn't enough, it must repeat. And repetition without emotion rarely sticks. It's the marriage of both that makes an experience permanent. That's why one humiliating event can echo for decades. Its emotional voltage burned the pattern deep. Likewise, rhythmic repetition of small actions, brushing teeth, tying shoes, requires little emotion because practice carries its own reinforcement. This mixture of intensity and rhythm is what cements neural code. Neuroscience now calls these codes engrams, collections of neurons that fire together when the same emotion or action repeats. Each activation strengthens the circuit. Neurons that fire together wire together. With time, the circuit becomes default. You no longer choose the pattern, it chooses you. Imagine your subconscious as a library of loops. Each loop begins when your nervous system predicts what a situation demands. If that prediction matches your goal, you feel ease. If it doesn't, you feel tension. The loop then corrects or reinforces itself, and every reaction adds footnotes to the experience. Eventually, you stop encoding new information and just replay the edited version. That's why childhood events continue to influence adult behavior. They're reference scripts, not because they're true, but because they're accessible. The mind doesn't prefer accuracy, it prefers familiarity. Familiar equals safe. It's the same logic that draws you to songs you already know, or patterns of friendship that feel comfortable even when they hurt. Familiarity soothes the primitive brain. Growth threatens it. Let's observe how this shapes specific behaviors. Suppose, as a child, your efforts were often corrected rather than praised. Your brain paired effort with danger. Each attempt meant risk of criticism. Over time, you learned to avoid beginning tasks. Consciously, you want ambition. Subconsciously, you equate ambition with pain. The pattern persists until deliberate new conditioning teaches the brain a different equation. Effort, progress, relief, replacing the old effort, judgment, fear. Conditioning writes itself through three main channels: language, imagery, and sensation. Language is the shaping tool of culture. The words you hear repeatedly form expectations about reality. Be careful, the world is dangerous. You're so clever. Intellect equals worth. Each phrase repeated by influential voices settles into the mental soil as a law rather than an opinion. Adults inherit thousands of these inner sound bites, quiet mandates that operate unquestioned. Imagery reinforces those laws by giving them mental pictures. When you imagine an outcome vividly, neurons fire as if it already happened. This is why dread feels physical. Your body rehearses failure in real time because imagination doesn't distinguish between simulation and event. Repeated imagination is rehearsal. Rehearsal is conditioning. You can suffer disasters that never occur simply because you visualize them too consistently. Sensation is the body's half of the dialogue. Every bodily reaction you ignore still leaves residue. Tightness in the chest after confrontation, shallow breathing during deadlines, jaw clenching before sleep. These reactions tell the subconscious which states belong to which experiences. If exhaling feels unsafe, the body learns to hold breath chronically. If relaxation follows achievement only, the system equates rest with earned permission instead of basic function. Soon, exhaustion feels moral and relaxation guilty. That belief wasn't chosen, it was installed by repetition. To reprogram any pattern, you must feed new data through the same channels. New language with consistent tone, new imagery rehearsed calmly, new sensation practiced daily. This is emotional engineering, substituting deliberate associations for accidental ones. People often complain that affirmations don't work. They rarely fail because of wording, they fail from inconsistency and lack of emotion. An affirmation repeated with doubt strengthens doubt. To install a phrase into the second mind, you must attach physiological proof: relaxed breath, slower pulse, open posture. When the body agrees, the subconscious listens. When it disagrees, the words die at the surface. Conditioning also answers a mystery of sabotage. Why do you revert to the very habits you swore to end? Because the subconscious doesn't understand subtraction, it understands replacement. When you try to stop a habit, you present absence. Absence scares the system. It needs continuity. If stress scrolling once provided dopamine and you simply remove it, the brain hungers for substitute stimulation. Replacement must precede removal. Swap scrolling for breath work, sugar for water, gossip for stillness. You are never ending habits, only trading inputs through repetition until the new loop overwrites the old. During this process, emotion acts as glue. Without emotional resonance, conditioning drifts away. With too much, it burns and distorts. The ideal zone is composed engagement, intention steady enough to register, calm enough to remain clear. That's why motivated frenzies rarely last. They flood emotion faster than the system can file it, like trying to etch memory in a storm. Discipline works slower. It engraves neatly. Consider how environment supplements these rules. The subconscious collects context along with action: lighting, smell, tone, texture. That's why certain places recreate specific moods. memory lives in surroundings. Changing place can accelerate reprogramming because the body stops receiving the same sensory cues. New environment equals new code directory. Even rearranging furniture splits association loops. The mind notices change and stays alert to new input. You can manipulate this deliberately. Designate one spot for calm activities, another for focus, and both will strengthen the intended state by association. Conditioning, then, is not mystical destiny, it's maintenance. Whatever you repeat most becomes default. Whatever you emotionally reinforce becomes powerful. Every second spent in anxiety, practice fortifies anxiety circuitry. Every second spent in composure practice fortifies composure circuitry. Your habits are simply the winners of a time contest. To rewrite conditioning, the first step is observation. The second is interference. The third is reinforcement. Observation means catching the pattern in motion. For a week, note small decisions. When you check your phone, raise your shoulders, postpone speaking truth. Light awareness freezes the loop long enough to see it clearly. Interference means changing the middle link, not the beginning or end. If criticism, tension, withdrawal is your chain, target the middle. Keep criticism, but relax the response. Breathe before withdrawal. The mind rewires fastest when the new outcome arrives where the old outcome used to. Reinforcement means repeating the new path long enough for the second mind to adopt it as baseline. Neural networks don't delete, they quiet unused circuits until they weaken. Time and consistency are erasers. The patience required offends modern speed. You can memorize a fact in an hour. You can't embody a new self-response quicker than your biology allows. But once embodiment occurs, it's permanent. You'll forget the struggle and call it natural change. Sometimes people fear conditioning because it sounds manipulative, as though they'll become artificial. Yet every personality trait is already a product of conditioning. Self-programming simply chooses the direction. Authenticity isn't the absence of learned behavior. It's alignment between conscious intent and programmed instinct. You're most authentic when both minds agree on purpose. To check your current alignment, ask this: how many of my reactions feel chosen? Every time the answer is not many, you've discovered opportunity. Those autopsies of reaction are not shame, they're maps. Each map shows where the old code still runs without your consent. Neural imaging studies affirm what ancient disciplines knew. Practice reshapes anatomy. After 8 weeks of deliberate meditation or reframing, measurable density changes appear in areas tied to attention and emotional regulation. This isn't metaphor. The brain's physical structure bends to repeated thought. Your focus literally grows muscle where it's exercised. That's liberation, disguised as biology. Everything automatic inside you was once voluntary. You paid for it with repetition. Therefore, everything automatic can, with patience, be rewritten. Your second mind is a perfect student. It never stops learning. The only question is whether you teach deliberately or allow the environment to instruct by default. Every scroll, complaint, or calm breath is a new lesson. Conditioning doesn't rest between sessions. It catalogues reality constantly. From here outward, begin teaching gently. Replace punishment with proof, repetition with awareness, cluttered emotion with clear intention. Don't attempt overnight transformation. Retraining the nervous system is cultivation, not conquest. When patience fuses with precision, your subconscious begins copying your present instead of replaying your past. That's conditioning done consciously, and where composure first becomes automatic. Chapter 3: The Autopilot Problem. You live with a machine that runs your life while convincing you that you are in control of it. This machine is not external, it's the automatic layer of your mind, the collection of habits, reflexes, and shortcuts that keep the system moving without conscious input. It keeps you breathing while asleep, driving while thinking of something else, and typing coherent sentences while your attention wanders. You call it efficiency, but often it's captivity dressed as comfort. The subconscious was designed for survival. Conscious thought is slow. It spends energy calculating options. Instinct and learned reflexes act fast. They're built to protect, conserve, and repeat. In primitive life, that speed kept you alive. A rustle in the grass didn't need deep analysis. It needed a jump. Our nervous system inherited that architecture. Repetition given authority. Awareness reduced when patterns succeed. Where the pattern works, the brain stops overseeing the process. That handoff is the beginning of autopilot. In essential functions, walking, eating, reading, it's freedom. You don't want to relearn every motion each morning. But in thought and emotion, automation becomes invisible bondage. Over time, the subconscious not only manages survival tasks, it begins managing identity. It decides without consultation what you should fear, what you deserve, what success means, what love demands. Decisions appear spontaneous because the lines of code run faster than observation. You simply feel compelled, certain, or avoidant, and call it personality. Autopilot hides behind rational language. When you justify a reaction, most of the reasoning begins after the system has already acted. You're not explaining a decision, you're explaining a decision that has already been executed. The conscious mind, embarrassed to discover the move was instinctive, writes a report pretending it gave the order. This illusion keeps the ego intact, but it freezes progress. You can't reprogram an operation you refuse to admit is automated. Every environment strengthens autopilot. Repeated scenery produces predictable behavior. Walk into your kitchen, your hand might reach the cupboard without thought. Open the phone, thumb lands where the same icon once lived. Patterns intend to save mental effort, yet they steal awareness each time they perform unexamined. The moment you don't notice doing something, the subconscious has claimed that territory. Autopilot is efficient in moderation. In excess, it erases sensitivity to nuance. You begin answering experience with script instead of sensing its detail. When a friend speaks, you supply stored replies. When conflict approaches, the body reenacts its old defense sequence before you can choose tone or patience. Life becomes playback. Real freedom is autonomy over automation. To reclaim it, you must first see its fingerprints. The simplest evidence lies in repetition without reflection. Anything you keep doing while questioning it little is probably automated. The commute playlist, the snack during stress, the way you check mirrors not for safety but from anxious compulsion. None are inherently bad. They simply reveal how much of existence runs beneath conscious light. Interrupting autopilot requires friction. Automation depends on momentum. Introduce pause and the system hesitates. Hesitation is awareness returning. You can train this pause deliberately with micro breaks. Before each ordinary action, opening an email, replying, eating, add a single breath where you notice the urge instead of obeying it. That half second of observation transforms mechanical motion into deliberate motion. 1/2 second repeated hundreds of times rewires an entire day.
The nervous system doesn't like interruption at first. You'll feel agitation, a shallow restlessness in limbs or thought. That's withdrawal from constant momentum. Stay with it. The tension is the noise of gears straining without command. If you sustain the pause long enough, energy that once powered reaction returns as attention. That reclaimed energy builds conscious control. Another key is audit through journaling, but not for emotion, for sequence. Write the exact order of events leading to an unwanted behavior. Trigger, response, relief. You'll usually find the relief, not the trigger, runs the program. For instance, checking messages isn't about curiosity. It's about the brief calm after checking.
Your subconscious learns that micro-calm follows digital action, so it repeats. This understanding lets you replace relief rituals instead of battling surface impulses. Autopilot also thrives on unchallenged labels. Say to yourself repeatedly, "I'm bad at focus," and the statement becomes a comfort. The subconscious treats the phrase as orientation, a rule that spares experimentation. Breaking this requires replacement identification. I'm training attention. It seems minor, but the tense change, present progressive rather than absolute, unlocks adaptation. The second mind doesn't respond to philosophy, it responds to framing. Change the grammar and the loop weakens. Most people fear losing autopilot because awareness feels heavier than habit. But greater control doesn't burden, it redistributes weight. Unconscious tension consumes far more energy than conscious direction. When you start choosing from presence, fatigue decreases even though thought appears to increase. Attention renews itself through awareness, not automation. To truly escape the autopilot problem, you must create new automatic systems, the kind you design intentionally. That's the paradox. You don't destroy automation, you refine it. You make the processes conscious once to set their trajectory, then let them serve you without supervision. Discipline, once trained, becomes effortless precisely because it's automated at a higher level. This is why structure produces freedom. The first mind chooses rules, the second mind executes them. Consider a pilot with manual override. Most of the flight runs on automatic settings, but constant micro-adjustments maintain stability. Awareness watches, not interferes, until interference is needed. Living consciously works the same way. You insert awareness at the right moments, not all moments. Continuous vigilance exhausts, strategic attention directs. One practical method is pattern swapping. List 3 behaviors you want to redirect. Beside each, list what sensation precedes it: a tightening, a craving, an emotional spike. When the sensation appears, attach a new microaction. For example, tension, exhale. Craving, sip water. Impatience, slow tone. Within weeks, the second mind learns that old cues lead to new endings. You've replaced rather than resisted. Be patient. Autopilot was carved over years. Its pathways are grooved like riverbeds. Water keeps returning until the new channel becomes deeper. The work is quiet and repetitive. You correct, revert, correct again. Eventually, the new route becomes scenic instead of forced. When that happens, you'll feel an unfamiliar silence in action, a sense of doing without inner noise. That silence is the second mind aligning with present intention. Awareness doesn't mean micromanaging every blink. It means taking ownership of programming. The goal isn't a life of constant analysis, but one where every automatic behavior has been chosen consciously at least once. That's mastery. To guide a machine powerful enough to run on its own without letting it dictate direction. To summarize, autopilot is not evil. It is the nervous system's gift, energy economy. But without new instruction, it repeats outdated scripts. Observation introduces friction. Friction births attention. Attention rewrites automation. You won't escape automation. You'll evolve its content. Your job isn't to fight impulse, it's to teach impulse new loyalties. When conscious intent, repetition, and emotion align, the second mind learns that composure is the safest route, and focus is the most familiar state. That's the meaning of reprogramming. Next, you'll learn how to speak the language of that deeper layer, how emotion and imagination can install new code faster than effort ever could.
Chapter 4: Programming through Emotion and Imagination. Emotion is the alphabet of the second mind. It speaks in feeling long before it echoes in words. When you want to change a belief or reaction, no sentence of logic can compete with the force of emotion that originally created it. The mistake most people make is trying to persuade the subconscious with language alone. They argue with their feelings, repeat new phrases, promise new behavior. But the second mind doesn't understand argument, it understands evidence. In its language, evidence means felt experience. Think of your subconscious as an emotional filing system. Every file labeled not by event, but by sensation. It doesn't remember that you failed an exam. It remembers the tightening in your chest, the heat of embarrassment, the sound of others' laughter. Later, when you face anything resembling risk or exposure, the file reopens. The conscious mind insists, it's different now. But the body reacts with the same chemistry because the emotional memory loaded faster than logic. That speed is the problem and also the solution, because the path into the second mind is the same one you used to get trapped inside it. Emotion. Changing an emotion does not mean suppressing it. Suppression writes another line of code that says, feeling is unsafe. What rewrites the system is replacement, introducing a new emotion in context with the old stimulus. If conflict once meant panic, pair conflict with breath and steady tone often enough, and the subconscious will note the update. Conflict can now coexist with calm. This is why controlled exposure heals faster than avoidance. When you repeatedly endure stress while staying composed, you teach safety where fear once lived. It isn't courage that changes you, it's familiarity. Imagination is the second tool. The brain treats vivid imagination nearly the same as lived reality. When you close your eyes and picture walking into a room with quiet confidence, hearing your voice calm, feeling shoulders relaxed, seeing details, the same neural patterns fire as if you truly did it. Do that daily, and the second mind begins to store confidence as a probable state, not fantasy. Visualization is rehearsal for the subconscious, but it only works when you allow emotion to accompany it. Picture without feeling, and the image is inert. Feel without direction, and you only agitate chemistry. Combine the two, and you're writing new instructions. When you visualize, avoid intensity that burns. Gentleness imprints better than force. The subconscious links urgency with danger. Imagine slowly, almost lazily, letting the scene unfold at natural rhythm. See steady light. Hear normal sounds. Breathe slower than usual. The aim is to introduce familiarity, not excitement. Excitement fades quickly, familiarity stays. Each calm repetition tells the body that composure is ordinary, not special. Once an idea becomes ordinary, the subconscious takes ownership of it. Familiarity is the highest form of acceptance. Emotion affects physiology, and physiology sends messages back up. You can use the body itself as a reprogramming device. Every emotion has posture and breath attached to it. Angry people tighten, anxious people shrink, confident people lift. Reverse engineer these signals and you transmit new data to the subconscious. Straighten spine, smooth breath, lengthen exhale. Hold that state long enough and the body reports to the brain, we are safe, we are capable. The new circuit records through muscle memory, not words. A single gesture, repeated with awareness, teaches faster than an hour of affirmation. Anchor new feelings in simple actions. Maybe you touch 2 fingers together every time your attention steadies, or you exhale intentionally when surprised. The subconscious links cause and effect quickly. After enough pairings, the gesture triggers the feeling it originally followed. This is how athletes cue performance and therapists cue calm. You're creating emotional shortcuts, manual switches that reach the second mind in one motion. Reprogramming also requires repetition, but not mindless repetition. 10 flat sessions of affirmation will do less than 1 truly felt instance of belief. Yet the subconscious needs reminders. Without consistency, it reverts.
The best rhythm is brief and daily, small injections of felt calm or clarity at predictable moments like waking, sitting to work, or shutting down the day. These rituals become timestamps that tell the second mind, now we switch states. You train the brain to associate cues, a lamp turning on, the warmth of coffee, the sound of one song, with focus and safety. The more consistent the cue, the faster the transition.
Every rewrite must also undo older pairings. Many people attach focus to pressure because focus was first learned under stress. They studied seriously only before exams, performed only under deadlines, so their nervous system labelled concentration as an emergency mode. Later, when they try to work peacefully, boredom sets in because adrenaline is missing. To fix this, practice focus during calm moments. Read slowly for interest, not urgency. Write without countdown. Eventually, the body stops linking concentration with danger and begins linking it with curiosity. The chemical pattern of focus changes from adrenaline to dopamine, from tension to engagement. Words still have a place, but as rhythm more than reasoning. Speak brief sentences that match the emotion you're creating. This is safe. I can stay calm. I'm alert and relaxed. The voice becomes background programming, keeping attention aligned with sensation. Avoid dramatic proclamations. The subconscious believes consistency, not volume. A quiet truth proves stronger than a shouted lie. Much of accidental programming happens through careless language. Every complaint rehearsed with emotion inscribes certainty. Say, I'm always distracted, with frustration often enough, and the second mind adopts distraction as identity. Watch your own phrases. Each sentence with strong tone is code. You can speak mastery or misfire, depending on how you describe yourself. Use language lightly, like steering, a touch, not a grip. The process of emotional reprogramming is invisible for weeks. Then one day you respond differently, quicker than thought, calmer by reflex. That's the sign your subconscious has accepted the update. Composure stops requiring effort because the body delivers it first. You don't fake peace. The peace precedes you. Understand this. Emotion writes the file. Imagination illustrates it. Repetition saves it. And body posture keeps it open. Together they form a closed circuit of transformation. You're not whispering wishes into emptiness. You're designing reflexes through chemistry and movement. When these elements align long enough, the second mind stops waiting for instruction. It begins sending calm forward before crises appear. That is the quiet victory of this work. You walk through your days differently, breathing slower, hearing clearer, reacting less. Nothing around you has become easier, yet everything feels lighter. What changed wasn't the noise, it was the code interpreting it. The second mind, once programmed by accident, now plays the score you composed deliberately.
Chapter 5. The Trigger Map. Every pattern you want to change begins as a trigger. Before behavior, before emotion, before thought, there's a signal that tells the subconscious what to do next. Sometimes it's external, an expression on someone's face, a sound, a notification, the smell of coffee. Sometimes it's internal, a memory, a heartbeat sped by stress, a flicker of shame. Triggers are the keyboard that plays the music of your behavior. Without recognizing the keys, you spend your life reacting to melodies you didn't compose. Triggers aren't enemies, they're information. They show you where your second mind still obeys old instructions. Everyone carries a hidden network of them, tiny cause and effect chains installed by years of repetition. The sound of footsteps behind you might quicken breath, because long ago that sound meant tension. The sight of someone frowning can draw a wave of guilt, even if you did nothing wrong, because your subconscious once paired other people's displeasure with danger. None of these signals make sense to logic, they make sense to history. The first step in reprogramming triggers is tracking them.
Observation replaces mystery with data. For a week, notice each time your mood changes suddenly or your body tightens without reason. Don't analyze, document. Felt anxious after that call. Numb after scrolling news. Focused when music started. You're building a map. Patterns will appear quickly. The same locations, times, or conversations start repeating. These are your consistent cues, the automatic buttons that switch your state. Once you see the layout, you'll understand that triggers operate like roads. Some carry you to composure, others to chaos. The bad news is that you can't remove them completely. Stimulus-response wiring is the brain's natural economy. The good news, you can reroute where each road leads. If a trigger opens fear, you can pair it with a new outcome, neutrality, breath, or humor, until the nervous system learns that this direction now ends somewhere else. You don't delete the path, you extend it. Begin small. Choose one common trigger, something that occurs daily. The phone lighting up, the start of traffic, an email sound. Each time it appears, insert one conscious act before the usual reaction. Maybe it's a slow exhale. Maybe a pause to notice posture. The gesture doesn't need to be long. What matters is interruption. You're teaching the subconscious that the old equation, stimulus equals reaction, is incomplete. A new variable has been introduced. Stimulus arrow, pause arrow, chosen response. In the beginning, the body will resist. It's used to finishing the loop. When you stop mid-pattern, energy gathers without outlet. It can feel uncomfortable, a restlessness that demands action. That tension isn't failure, it's old wiring searching for confirmation. Hold steady through the discomfort, and the system rewrites itself naturally. Repetition is proof, and proof calms biology faster than belief. You'll notice some triggers invite overreaction. The more personal the origin, the stronger the impulse. For these, awareness alone might not unwind them. You'll need substitution. Suppose criticism automatically sparks defensiveness. Instead of fighting to stay calm, swap the script deliberately. Criticism, question, clarity. The new middle step, asking a short question like, "What exactly feels true in this?" shifts the emotional chemistry. You move from fight-flight to curiosity, a state the brain perceives as safe.
Most triggers hide in environment. Lighting, temperature, time of day, all carry associations. If you habitually doom scroll only in one chair, that chair itself becomes a trigger. The simplest fix is rearrangement. Move the chair, change lighting, shape new cues. The human brain ties space to behavior so strongly that even scent can reinforce entire patterns. Use this deliberately. Keep one scent for work focus, another for rest. In weeks, smell alone will start shifting state before thought engages. Social triggers are the most persistent because they link to identity. Certain people pull specific versions of you from memory, sometimes ones you've outgrown. Notice who accelerates your insecurity or dulls your energy. Nothing mystical about it. The second mind recognizes voice tone, micro-expressions, the rhythm of speech. These cues act like passwords that log in older personas. Awareness lets you decide whether to sign in again. You can acknowledge residual tension without performing old scripts. This is how boundaries begin, not by avoidance but by staying whole inside familiar patterns. Internal triggers often come disguised as thoughts. A phrase like, "this is taking too long," or "people notice I'm nervous," is itself a conditioned signal. Every time that sentence repeats and you obey its tension, you reinforce it. The strategy here is naming without attachment. "That's my impatience loop," or "that's my approval program." Labeling with accuracy activates the prefrontal cortex, the reasoning center, which dilutes the emotional surge fired by the amygdala. One descriptive sentence converts chaos into data. Some triggers will vanish as life changes. Others remain but lose authority. The goal isn't perfection, it's predictability. You can't eliminate rain, but you can carry an umbrella. Knowing your triggers gives you that umbrella. Map them visually once a week. Draw circles for categories: environment, people, thought, body. List triggers beneath each, then mark which emotional state each one typically causes. Over time, the clusters shrink or change color. Fear triggers fade, calm ones multiply. You'll begin noticing how some positive cues exist too, small signals that summon clarity. The certain playlist, the sound of pages turning, a specific phrase of gratitude. These are your anchor triggers. They are as shaping as the negative ones, yet easier to overlook because they feel convenient rather than dramatic. Strengthen them. Pair them with deliberate gratitude so their circuits thicken. Understanding triggers transforms life from reaction to choreography. You start anticipating movements instead of stumbling through them. Anxiety lowers not because danger disappeared, but because predictability returned. People confuse safety with comfort, yet the subconscious cares less about comfort than it does about knowing what's next. Mapping triggers gives it that certainty. Eventually, the process becomes automatic itself, the healthiest kind of autopilot. A sound, a stress, a memory arises. Without panic, you notice and adjust. The delay between signal and response stretches from 0 seconds to 1, then to 2. Inside those seconds lies freedom. That narrow pause is where awareness lives. Expand it, and composure expands with it. The trigger map becomes more than a record. It's a dialogue with your second mind, proving that change isn't random but engineered. Each calm interruption is a line of new code. You're teaching the subconscious to use the same signals that once caused chaos as prompts for peace. A criticism reminds you to breathe. A traffic jam reminds you to slow internal tempo. A conflict reminds you to listen. Triggers remain, meaning changes.
By the time this practice matures, nothing external needs to cooperate for you to stay balanced. The world can flash, demand, or repeat its chaos. You've replaced reflex with response. That is the quiet advantage of mapping your own system. You no longer fear what sets you off, because you know where each switch leads, and more importantly, which ones you've already rewired.
Chapter 6: Rewriting the Script. Every human being carries an internal screenplay. It dictates tone, expectation, permission, and limitation. It decides how you interpret reality long before a single thought forms. This script wasn't written by a single author. It's a collage of voices: parents, culture, early victories, failures, and everything repeated with emotion. For most people, the story repeats without editing. The same lines get recited to new characters. I'm not ready. I can't handle it. Things just don't work out for me. Those sentences become orders quietly executed by the second mind. To rewrite the script, you must first locate it in motion. It's easiest to observe during moments of tension. When stress rises, your thoughts revert to the most familiar lines. You might whisper them internally without sound. Of course this would happen. I always mess up here. They're judging me. Don't argue yet. Just record. Every repeated phrase is evidence of the old program doing its job. It's not malice, it's automation protecting consistency. These phrases live in layers. Some are statements, others are tones. A statement might say, I'm not enough. A tone says it as a mood, apologetic posture, lowered gaze, shallow breath. When words are erased but tone remains, the emotion still directs behavior. That's why changing vocabulary alone rarely shifts life. The feeling underneath keeps broadcasting the same energy through nonverbal channels. To change the script, you need a full rewrite, language and tone together. Begin with recognition rather than confrontation. Write down 3 phrases or feelings that appear whenever things go wrong. Perhaps, I can't trust anyone.
Good things don't last. I never finish what I start. Each line began somewhere real. Your mind considered it a practical observation and then reinforced it into law. Now you treat it like gravity. The rewrite starts with questioning law. When the phrase surfaces, respond with quiet curiosity instead of correction. Ask, is this true in all cases? Your goal isn't to replace negativity with positivity, it's to break the illusion of certainty. Doubt weakens automation. The moment the absolute becomes a possibility, the script loosens. You don't need blind optimism, you need flexibility. Next comes conscious rewriting. For every legacy line, create its mature upgrade. Phrases that respect realism but return authorship to you. I can't trust anyone becomes, I decide who's earned my trust. Good things don't last becomes, good things evolve when maintained. I never finish what I start becomes, I'm training follow-through by completing one thing. The new script doesn't pretend, it redirects. Each statement names agency where helplessness once lived. Speak these new sentences out loud once daily while grounded. Feet on floor, breath low, shoulders back. The posture matters because the second mind absorbs lesson from sensation. If you declare confidence while caving inward, the body marks contradiction. Stand how belief would stand. Your alignment becomes the proof that replaces words. Now practice repetition in context. Affirmations are powerful only when embedded in the same scenes where old lines used to run. If your worst loops occur during criticism, speak the new dialogue after feedback arrives, not when everything is peaceful. If insecurity shows up around authority, repeat your new line in that exact environment. You're revising memory where it lives rather than creating fantasy elsewhere. Each successful rehearsal overwrites emotional memory by pairing the old cue with a new outcome. After several pairings, the trigger itself flips meaning. The moment that used to provoke retreat becomes your reminder to center. Writing the script means literal writing too. Print it. Use paper. The act of hand movement tells the nervous system to prioritize content. Rewrite the self-description sections often. The first time, sentences will feel false because sensation hasn't caught up. By the fifth, they'll feel neutral. Neutrality means integration has begun. Once calm replaces argument, the body has accepted the update. The second mind loves evidence, so design small proofs to accompany new phrases. If your script says, I'm easily distracted, schedule 15 uninterrupted minutes of focus each day, nothing more. Record completion. Concrete proof converts abstract desire into tangible rewiring. Every piece of data tells the subconscious, the new identity works. The job now is to keep feeding that evidence until it outweighs the old archive. At times, you will catch yourself mid-sentence, halfway through speaking the old line. Resist self-criticism. Correction without shame is faster learning. Say the new line quietly and move on. The idea isn't purity, it's persistence. Even a single interception proves awareness is stored higher in the chain than habit. Awareness itself is an edit. Because tone shapes outcome as much as words, train internal narration. Observe how you speak to yourself in thought rhythm. Is it rushed? Critical? Sarcastic? Practice saying ordinary phrases slowly in a warm voice. Try reading messages or reminders aloud with calm tone. That acoustic vibration reaches deep parts of the nervous system. Sound is vibration, vibration is data. Over time, you'll notice the internal pace slows, the voice softens, and reaction time stretches. This is rewiring through audio, the way lullabies calm infants, and music evokes states without explanation.
One common worry arises during any script rewrite. It feels fake. The mind whispers, "You're lying to yourself." Understand that falseness and novelty share identical sensations. The new always feels untrue until repetition certifies it. Don't chase belief, chase familiarity. Belief blooms naturally once the neural pathway expects the new phrasing. To reinforce faster, use visualization again. Image the old sentence as text on an old document fading with light. Picture writing the new one in its place. Do this once before sleep, when the brain passes through theta wave frequency, its most suggestible state. 10 quiet minutes of this nightly accelerate installation more than hours of talking by day. Gradually, the story begins adjusting itself. Conversations change, posture alters, reactions shrink. People around you may sense difference before you consciously notice. That's proof you've transferred ownership from external authors back to self. No dramatic breakthrough, just less noise and more certainty about direction. This is the essence of reprogramming, updating inner dialogue until it no longer argues with intention. Your external life responds accordingly because your perception filters new possibility. Reality hasn't been rewritten, interpretation has. And interpretation governs everything: patience, creativity, discipline, even love. The longer you live with the revised script, the more it merges with physiology. Heart rate lowers, decisions quicken, focus steadies. Eventually, you'll forget rewriting ever felt deliberate. The new lines will play as naturally as breathing. That's when you know the second mind has memorized its new role. Not as critic, not as echo of older voices, but as faithful narrator of the life you are choosing.
Chapter 7. Installing Composure. Composure isn't an attitude. It's a state of regulation. It's what happens when the nervous system stops seeing the present moment as a threat. Most people chase composure through mindset alone, by trying to calm down or forcing positive thoughts. But the body doesn't read philosophy. It reads chemistry, breath, posture, and pace. To install composure into your second mind, you have to teach the body what safety feels like until it remembers it without instruction. The nervous system has two main gears: activation and restoration. Activation prepares you to respond. Heart rate climbs, breathing shortens, muscles tighten. Restoration, which science calls the parasympathetic response, rebuilds and integrates. It restores digestion, learning, and emotional balance. Composure lives at the intersection, where activation and restoration alternate smoothly. Alert but steady, wakeful but not distressed. Your task is to program that balance as a default setting. Begin with breath, the simplest line of communication between conscious and subconscious. Breathing is the only function your body performs automatically, yet can also be controlled. Every time you breathe deliberately, you hold the microphone to the subconscious. Slow exhalations tell the system that the environment is secure. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out is enough. Repeat until you feel heaviness in the limbs or warmth spreading through the chest. That physical shift is chemistry changing, not imagination. The body listens faster than thought. Once the breath stabilizes, place awareness on posture. Every emotional state has a shape. Fear collapses inward. Anger rises and pushes. Shame twists toward itself. When you change the geometry of your body, you alter the emotional equation it represents. Stand or sit upright without stiffness. Let shoulders roll relaxed, chin parallel with floor. It's not about appearing confident. It's about telling the subconscious, "No threat here." After repeated sessions, Your nervous system will begin assuming this shape automatically in moments of stress. It's the equivalent of installing new body language at the system level. Environment acts as the external nervous system. The surrounding light, color, temperature, and sound become sensory data through which the second mind decides how to feel. Choose one consistent place where you practice composure: a specific chair, piece of music, scent, or even time of day. The repeated pairing of calm rituals with predictable environment accelerates conditioning. A few weeks later, simply entering that space or hearing that sound will cue the same biological peace you cultivated there. You've built a physical shortcut to serenity. The hardest part of installing composure is teaching it to hold under friction. Anyone can be peaceful in silence. Composure shows its worth inside motion. Gradually introduce small discomforts while sustaining relaxed breath: a cold shower, a long wait in line, a conversation under pressure. Note the first sign of tightening, then lengthen exhale. The equation shifts: stress, breath, relief. The brain learns that challenge no longer equates to danger, only to demand. That change is permanent once proven often enough. Repeated calm in difficulty, not absence of difficulty, builds resilience. You can expand this training into how you speak. Your tone encodes safety for both speaker and listener. Notice how volume and rhythm follow emotion automatically. Shouting accelerates heartbeats. Slower speech lowers them. Practice speaking a little slower than impulse would suggest. Let pauses exist. The nervous system hears space as control. Eventually, deliberate pacing becomes natural, and your presence steadies others too. True composure radiates. It regulates the environment rather than absorbing it. A useful practice here is what psychologists call grounding through detail. When you notice rising panic, redirect attention to simple sensory tasks: the feel of your feet, the texture of nearby surfaces, warmth or coolness of air. Counting these details forces awareness back into the present. The subconscious receives proof that survival systems can rest. There is detail, therefore there is safety. Panic lives in projection. Presence dissolves it. Another layer is emotional labeling. Studies show that when you name a feeling, activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, drops. Words introduce order into sensation. When frustration or fear appears, don't suppress it, define it. This is tension. This is uncertainty. The moment you speak the label, the conscious mind reclaims authority. Emotions stop being instructions and become data. Regular labeling builds a repertoire of clarity. The subconscious gets summary reports instead of raw noise. You're not teaching the body to avoid tension, but to metabolize it. Every controlled recovery from stress increases tolerance for intensity without loss of calm. The spectrum between panic and lethargy narrows until steadiness sits in the middle. What once triggered racing thoughts now registers as manageable pressure. Athletes call this relaxed intensity, artists flow, monks equanimity. The names differ, the physiology is the same. As composure becomes habit, a quieter form of confidence appears, one rooted not in belief but in regulation. People often confuse confidence with certainty. In reality, it's biological familiarity with arousal. You no longer interpret acceleration of heartbeat as threat. You read it as energy available for use. That reinterpretation changes performance completely. The subconscious stops mistaking excitement for fear, boredom for rest, silence for vulnerability. It updates its dictionary.
Chapter 8. Focus as a byproduct of clarity. Focus is often mistaken for force. People try to concentrate the way they try to lift heavy weights, through tension, through effort, through will. But the brain doesn't sustain focus by straining, it sustains it by removing interference. A clear mind doesn't fight for focus, it falls into it naturally. Clarity is the foundation, focus is the echo that follows. When information and emotion compete, focus fragments. Think about how awareness feels when you're worried. Part of you is inside the task, another part is rehearsing a conversation, another is solving a future that doesn't exist yet. Each layer consumes a fraction of attention. You don't lose focus because you lack discipline. You lose it because the mind is processing excess. Focus fails not through weakness, but through clutter. Every unfinished loop, a plan, a doubt, an unread thought, drains a measurable piece of mental energy. The first principle of clarity is closure. The subconscious hates incompleteness. It reopens tabs until data resolves. That's why you remember unsent messages while forgetting completed tasks. To reclaim bandwidth, finish what you start, even small motions. Send the text, put away the mug, note the idea. Each completion closes a loop, feeding the brain an end signal that resets chemistry. You feel instant relief because unfinished business no longer demands vigilance. The second principle is single input. Multitasking isn't speed, it's confusion multiplied. Every time you switch context, there's a reload cost. The nervous system must adjust, refocus, realign sensory filters. In a minute, it seems negligible. In an hour, it becomes fatigue masquerading as boredom. True focus is sequential engagement, one sense, one event, one purpose at a time. You can't expand attention by doing more. You expand it by giving more of yourself to less. The third principle is state alignment. You cannot think clearly in a body sending danger signals. If breath is short or posture defensive, half of cognition is busy convincing the nervous system that survival is managed. Safety precedes intelligence. That's why composure leads directly to concentration. A calm body tells the brain it's safe to use energy for thought instead of defense. Regulation is not a luxury, it's the prerequisite for depth. Clarity requires filtration, not addition. Ask yourself through the day, what's mine? How many worries come from direct reality versus adopted noise? How much mental storage belongs to opinions that aren't yours, expectations never spoken, information irrelevant to your work? Once identified, subtract. You'll notice immediate expansion. Attention rebounds as soon as the brain stops triaging borrowed problems. Here's the formula. Clarity equals focus plus peace. You can create it with a short practice repeated multiple times a day. Stop wherever you are and answer 3 questions. 1. What am I doing now? 2. What matters most in this moment? 3. What can wait? Write if possible. Thought alone evaporates. If done frequently, this process becomes an internal autopilot that steers awareness toward essentials automatically, just as old autopilot once steered it toward distraction. A clear mind is rarely silent, it's orderly. Thoughts still arise, but each knows its place. Imagine them as voices at a round table. One speaks, others wait. Disorder happens when all the voices shout simultaneously. Focus is simply the authority that restores sequence, one voice at a time. You don't chase silence, you manage conversation. To train this sequential awareness, use the practice of narrow to wide. Begin by noticing a single small detail, a sound, breath, texture. Hold awareness there for a minute. Then widen gradually until you sense the full environment, all while maintaining calm in the body. Repeat. The exercise teaches the mind to zoom consciously instead of jumping reactively. Soon you can shrink or expand attention at will, controlling scope rather than being controlled by it. Emotion and focus are partners. Strong negative emotion narrows attention too much. There's no room left for nuance. Excess positive stimulation scatters it. The sweet spot lies between, the steady hum of interested presence. Curiosity achieves this balance effortlessly, slightly alert, gently invested.
Replace critique with curiosity whenever attention wanes. Ask, what's subtle here? Not, what's wrong? That generates tension. But, what don't I understand yet? Questions open, statements close.
Environment reciprocates focus. Visual clutter multiplies micro-decisions. What to ignore, what to move. Noise alters heart rate and steals bandwidth unconsciously as your body scans for threats. Simplify physical space relentlessly. Objects left visible should earn their position. When your surroundings stop shouting, mental voice finally quiets enough to deepen. People often ask how long they should practice focus each day. The answer is hidden inside attention span, not clock time. Begin where attention fails, work just beyond that edge. If you lose concentration after 20 minutes, stretch to 25. Most improvements in focus come not from macro sessions, but from many tiny reapproachments, drifting away, noticing, returning without judgment. Each gentle return builds neural strength far more than aggressive endurance. Remember this mantra: focus follows interest, interest follows meaning. You can't discipline your brain to care, you can only align duty with value. Clarify why what you're doing matters in a broader frame. The mind commits entirely once it resonates with purpose. Even the repetitive becomes meditative when connected to meaning. As clarity increases, effort changes flavor. You spend less energy convincing yourself to begin because there's fewer alternative paths to negotiate. Decision friction disappears. Work feels fluid, almost predetermined, as though you're moving within one clear corridor. That's not luck. That's the architecture of attention rebuilt. Focus that comes from clarity carries no tension. Your shoulders stay low, breathing remains smooth. Time stretches but doesn't drag. Distractions lose their emotional charge because anything irrelevant feels physically distant. The experience is quiet intensity, awareness steady like a lens, directed but relaxed. This is the state monks call one-pointedness, scientists call flow, and you can call ownership. Once known, you never forget its physics. You simply recreate the conditions. The final step is integration, making focus portable. Attach short sensory anchors to it, a specific inhale shape, a subtle phrase such as now. Each anchor becomes a doorway back to clarity wherever you are. With practice, you no longer need special environments or rituals. Focus travels with you, because clarity is internal housekeeping, not external control. In time, concentration stops feeling like aiming a beam and starts feeling like standing in clean air. You realize it was never about holding attention harder, it was always about holding less in mind at once. When nothing unnecessary competes, awareness collects naturally around what remains. That effortless absorption is true focus, the result of a mind so clear that attention no longer needs command. It simply chooses home. Chapter 9. The Feedback Loop. The subconscious learns by repetition, but even more by outcome. Every experience sends back a signal. This worked, or this didn't. That signal decides which circuits strengthen and which fade. The second mind, like a careful scientist, waits for evidence before rewriting its code. Without feedback, effort vanishes into silence. With feedback, transformation accelerates. The difference between change that sticks and change that collapses is how quickly awareness captures results and refines them. You've been living inside feedback loops from the start. When you were a child and an action won approval or comfort, that loop imprinted as safe. When action brought scolding or isolation, the loop tagged danger. Over years, those labels expanded into patterns that shape adult moods. Nervousness before expression, guilt after rest, pride in overwork. Each signal repeats, teaching the subconscious how to behave next time. Many people never examine this process. They assume emotion is cause, not consequence. But every feeling is feedback, data the body returns about how well your internal program matched reality. The loop begins with an input, a situation,
thought, or goal. Next comes behavior, the reaction, automatic or deliberate. Then feedback, the response your senses report after acting. Lastly, adjustment, where either the subconscious repeats or rewrites. That's the full circle. Break the circle anywhere and progress stalls. Ignore feedback and you repeat mistakes. Avoid behavior and no data arrives. Accept feedback blindly and you become whoever others expect. Mastering this loop means staying conscious at all 4 points. The most common error is outsourcing feedback to approval. When you wait for others to validate change, the loop exits your hands. The subconscious learns dependency. Peace equals praise. Then the absence of compliments feels like failure, even if growth is occurring. Real progress uses internal metrics: energy, consistency, composure, clarity. Ask instead, did I stay aligned? External applause is unstable feedback. Inner steadiness is reliable code. Internal feedback isn't emotionless, it's gentle data collection. At the end of each day, run a short scan. What actions brought relief? Which drained energy disproportionately? Where did I act from composure versus reaction? Write a few lines. 3 minutes is enough. The second mind doesn't need essays, just timestamps of proof. When you record calm decisions and witness their results, even small ones, you show the subconscious that the new model yields safety. That proof encourages replication faster than any moral lecture. The same logic applies in work and learning. Skill improves not by hours, but by precise adjustment between rounds. Musicians practice one phrase, listen, correct, repeat. Athletes perform, review tape, alter technique. Apply that structure internally. Notice, adjust, repeat. When an interaction goes badly, replay it not for guilt, but for data. What triggered autopilot? What breath, phrase, or posture could alter next time's outcome? Thinking this way makes failure efficient instead of emotional. Error becomes experiment. Positive feedback matters equally. We're conditioned to analyze mistakes but skip successes. Yet recognition of progress cements circuits even quicker. When composure held through a stressful call, pause and feel pride without exaggeration. Tell the body, this works. The flood of calm chemistry pairs with the memory, marking it as a route worth repeating. You're training the subconscious to crave steadiness like it once craved adrenaline. There's another feedback system, quieter but deeper: physiology. Tension in neck or gut, eye strain, fatigue, these are live diagnostics. Your body texts you constant updates about code misfires. During conversation, feel when muscles brace. It's older programming expecting conflict. Drop the shoulders mid-sentence and new feedback returns immediately. Breath expands, tone softens, connection steadies. Body cues replace abstract theory. The nervous system provides instant coaching if you're willing to listen.
Feedback loops also govern focus. When you concentrate successfully, dopamine releases small rewards. Notice that satisfaction consciously, and you reinforce attention's pleasure. Miss it, and the brain forgets why focus felt good, drifting back to stimulation seeking. Celebrate micro wins quietly. One completed paragraph, one deep minute of reading without distraction. The acknowledgement is not vanity, it's reinforcement. Attention follows reward. One danger of feedback is overanalysis. Too much monitoring becomes self-consciousness, which breaks flow. Balance review with trust. Evaluate afterward, not during. During action, stay immersed. Afterward, study the recording. Professional calm emerges when you separate the player from the coach inside your own mind. While performing, the player acts without judgment. When finished, the coach refines data. Confuse roles and performance collapses into paralysis. To speed learning, shorten feedback distance. The sooner the second mind sees result, the stronger the lesson. That's why practicing composure daily consolidates faster than weekly reflection. Immediate signals encode better than delayed reflection. Don't wait for crisis to measure growth. Track small contexts. The email you wrote slower, the meeting where breathing stayed smooth, the moment you sensed irritation and smiled instead. Each counts fully because the subconscious values frequency more than scale. Keeping a second mind journal transforms feedback into a living record. In one column, mark old triggers. Next to them, note new reactions. Over weeks, patterns reveal themselves, the slope of panic flattening, stretches of focus lengthening. Numbers aren't necessary, awareness is enough. Progress landscapes, drawn in your own words, convince the system change persists. The subconscious trusts consistent evidence far more than inspiration. Resistance sometimes spikes right before stabilization. When progress feels invisible, doubt appears. That too is feedback, your old coding testing commitment. Stay patient. During rewiring, the system produces echoes, residual waves of previous emotions seeking closure. Meeting them calmly tells your body that these echoes can pass unsatisfied. After a few cycles, the noise fades completely. Feedback from the external world carries value once you filter it. Criticism can refine you if it enters through composure rather than defensiveness. When someone offers harsh words, pause before reaction. Ask inwardly, is this information or projection? Keeping what's useful and discarding the tone transforms external friction into polish instead of injury. Your second mind learns that outside energy can't unseat internal equilibrium unless you invite it.
Eventually, feedback becomes self-running maintenance. The same awareness that once required notebooks now operates automatically. You act, sense the quality of energy that follows, and adjust subtly next time. The loop compresses from deliberate to intuitive. That is mastery, the system correcting itself almost as quickly as it acts. Remember, feedback isn't judgment, it's navigation. Aeroplanes drift off course most of a flight, yet constant small corrections bring them exactly to destination. So it is with mind training. You will drift toward distraction, reaction, emotion, but correction, not guilt, realigns trajectory. Each small course guide keeps the larger mission clear. In moments of impatience, remind yourself, perfection isn't the absence of deviation, it's the speed of recovery. When awareness returns quickly, you are already succeeding. Every cycle of notice and adjust tightens the loop between intention and reality until they overlap. At that point, growth stops feeling like change and starts feeling like stability. You aren't reinventing yourself anymore, you're maintaining precision. The feedback loop has become the silent engineer of your second mind, ensuring the program you built keeps running smoothly, long after effort quiets.
Chapter 10. Becoming the Programmer. You spent this entire journey tracing the layers beneath thought, seeing how emotion shapes memory, how repetition builds identity, how awareness rewrites the reflex. The final step is ownership. To become the programmer is to shift from living reactively to designing your own mental environment. The second mind will always execute code. It never sleeps, never argues. The question from now on is simple. Who writes the updates? Most people let circumstance play the role of software engineer. They wait for life to install lessons, for accidents to teach restraint, for betrayal to teach boundaries. It works, but slowly and painfully. A conscious programmer learns directly, by testing, refining, selecting. You already have the tools: observation, feeling, conditioning, feedback. What's left is continuity, the discipline of keeping those tools running long after novelty fades. To live as a programmer, start each morning with configuration instead of consumption. Before responding to messages or noise, choose the day's emotional default in silence. A single minute is enough. Breathe, recall composure, visualize the tone you want running in the background of your actions. Calm efficiency, quiet confidence, patient authority.
The second mind reads this posture as instruction and will polish your behavior to match. That's coding through state. Next, set parameters. Programmers create boundaries not to limit, but to ensure stability. You do the same by pre-deciding where energy will and will not go. Today, I will apply focus here. I will remain indifferent to this. Parameters protect processing power. Every unchecked stimulus is a process stealing CPU from the main task. Defining edges is the highest form of mental efficiency. Throughout the day, you debug. Watch for when output doesn't match intention. If irritation or doubt appears, pause and trace the bug backward. What triggered it? Which file, belief, memory, posture fed that reaction? Correct locally. Breath corrects chemistry. Language corrects interpretation. Each fix, however small, prevents systemic lag. Perfection isn't no error, it's immediate repair. Programming the second mind also means upgrading input sources. Everything you feed attention to becomes code. Words you hear, visuals you absorb, even tones of people near you, all leave snippets in memory. Guard exposure as carefully as nutrition. Consume with purpose. Silence, good art, strong ideas, honest company. Input quality builds subconscious architecture. Garbage input produces mental malware. Every program depends on its libraries. Long-term stability demands compounding loops. Repetition has been the architecture of transformation. Now it must sustain maintenance. Keep small rituals. Daily breath calibration, weekly reflection journal, monthly environment reset. Rituals are scheduled patches preventing regression. When consistency replaces intensity, evolution becomes lifestyle rather than project. As awareness matures, control changes shape. Early control felt like management, correcting, steering, forcing clarity. Mature control feels like trust. You allow processes to run without interference because you know they were written well. The programmer does not hover over every line of code. They design smart defaults. Likewise, when your subconscious has proven discipline, let it operate. You don't need to remember calm. Calm remembers you. Becoming the programmer invites humility. Control here isn't domination, but collaboration with your own biology. The body supplies signals. You interpret. The subconscious executes. Each part carries wisdom of its domain. The conscious mind sets purpose. The subconscious handles precision. Respecting both is mastery. Reason without rigidity, instinct without chaos. A powerful exercise to confirm integration is the mirror audit. Once a week, stand still for 60 seconds before a mirror and watch breathing. Don't correct expression, observe. If the face looks tight, you'll know tension has crept back into daily code. Adjust physically and mentally until the reflection radiates neutrality. There's no vanity in this, it's diagnostics. The mirror returns visual feedback about internal scripts faster than any journal.
As the weeks pass, results compound quietly. Tasks that previously required emotional rehearsal now happen effortlessly. Reactions shrink to measurements, not storms. Loneliness feels like space, not absence. Success feels like confirmation, not surprise. These aren't personality changes. They're proof the second mind runs upgraded software. Calm has become the operating system. From this stage forward, everything new you learn will install faster because the foundation is stable. The same loops that once captured you now serve you. The program self-corrects under stress, using Composure as baseline. Even when pressure spikes, awareness recovers before damage occurs. That is psychological immunity. But remember, every system drifts without update. Complacency reverts to inheritance. So schedule recalibration. Pause quarterly to check. What scripts am I unconsciously rehearsing now? Which beliefs have expired? What emotion dominates my baseline this season? Delete, rewrite, backup. Maintenance separates sustained growth from relapse. This discipline doesn't chain creativity, it amplifies it. A clean system processes novelty without fragmenting. You can enter unknown environments without losing orientation because your script prioritizes clarity over familiarity. Paradoxically, structure makes exploration safe. That's why disciplined artists create prolifically. Mental order frees emotional energy for play. Being the programmer also changes how you view others. You stop expecting consistency from people who've never updated their code. Compassion replaces judgment. Everyone runs on patterns installed long before awareness. You recognize their behavior as inherited script, not personal attack. That understanding maintains your equation of composure, empathy minus involvement. Eventually, the entire idea of reprogramming fades. There's only creation, routine creation of thought, focus, reaction, rest. The second mind becomes collaborator rather than student. It anticipates needs, simplifies days, corrects emotions mid-breath. What began as self-work turns into self-design. You live by principle because principle feels natural. You act with patience because agitation feels foreign. You've redefined normal. This is mastery without mystique, not control of the universe, just ownership of input and response. Power now feels quiet, measured, almost invisible. That invisibility is its proof. A well-programmed mind doesn't announce order, it moves through disorder smoothly. So end here the way you began, breathing. Inhale as the conscious mind, deliberate and observing. Exhale as the subconscious, efficient and steady. Between them flows awareness, the current that keeps both systems connected. You are both designer and design, coder and code. The work never ends, but neither does the calm that now performs it.
You have two minds, but one life to align them. The conscious mind plans, the second mind repeats. Together they shape every reaction, thought, and habit. Change was never magic, it was method. Each calm breath, every rewritten phrase, every pause you practiced, retrained your circuitry. Composure is now a reflex, focus a natural setting. From here, your role is maintenance. Feed the subconscious clarity and proof that peace works. You've built a system guided by awareness and stabilized by feedback. Let it run. When stress returns, remember the code. Breath equals safety. Observation equals control. Patience equals power. These aren't slogans, they're triggers for calm already installed. Soon you'll notice silence arriving before you summon it, focus steady amid noise. That's the sign both minds agree. Close this program with one final command. Keep the peace. Hold the focus. Stay awake.